chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, thank you very much. We promised the nation that we will deliver our speech today as an opposition party, and we're about to do just that. We greet the leadership. We greet the leadership of Umkhonto weSizwe and the leadership and the members of the Progressive Caucus present here in Parliament. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify the false and empty promises of President of the so-called Government of National Unity, because throughout his presidency, he has made many commitments and promises which were never fulfilled and will never be fulfilled. Allow us to greet and pay homage to the President of Umkhonto weSizwe, our Commander General, President Jacob Zuma. During his tenure as President,
Honorable Hlophe, can you please take your seat? Honorable Member.
Honorable Chair, can you please take in charge of the House?
Can you be on your feet?
The Speaker has been drowning here.
Honorable Member, can you be on your feet? And on what point of order are you raising on? On what rule are you raising on?
Chair, the Speaker has been drowned, please.
Please take your seat, Honorable Member. Your order is not sustained. However, Honorable Member, I understand that there is echo in this House. Please, if we could try our level best to remain silent and allow the speakers to deliver their messages. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Hlophe.
Thank you very much. During his tenure as President and Head of State, President Zuma never told lies. He never claimed easy victories. President Zuma prioritized the work on the ground and delivered the services to our people. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe.
Honorable Hlophe, can you please take your seat? Honorable members, can we please allow the Speaker on the podium to debate? Order, honorable members, can we please allow the Speaker? Over to you, Honorable Hlophe.
Thank you. Give us the judge. Judge Judy. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe to state without any fear of doubt or contradictions by all measures and standards, President Jacob Zuma is the most successful president and head of state that South Africa has ever had. We are stating this fact not out of emotions or excitement, but through verified statistical data, which we will summarize in our input today. President Zuma's 9 years as head of state and president of our country was not just 9 wasted years, but was 9 years of progress defined by increasing life expectancy, access to education, and massive infrastructural programs. When President Zuma assumed office in 2009, South Africa's life expectancy was at 50 years, and throughout his leadership of South Africa as head of state, the life expectancy rose to more than 65 years, and that is a fact. Furthermore, there is no doubt that the rising life expectancy under President Zuma happened due to clear government interventions which included heightened provision of antiretroviral drugs to those infected with HIV and AIDS. The number of HIV and AIDS-related deaths decreased drastically under President Jacob Zuma, and that is a fact. President Jacob Zuma invested in education, and is the only president since 1994 to build new universities in provinces that never had universities before. The University of Mpumalanga and Solplaatje University in the Northern Cape happened due to the leadership of President Zuma, and that is the legacy of 9 years of progress we are talking about. In relation to infrastructure, President Zuma is number one when it comes to driving expenditure of education, health care, roads and transport and basic services of infrastructure than any other president in South Africa. It is a fact President Zuma built more hospitals, more roads, and more schools than any other head of state and president in South Africa. That is a fact. It was under President Zuma's presidency that the social protection net was expanded to reduce the devastating levels of poverty and suffering of our people. President Zuma increased the age categories of social grants recipients because he understood that people don't get richer when they get older. As the head of state and the president of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma openly advocated the expropriation of land without compensation. He was failed. President Zuma, was failed by a reactionary and collaborationist parliamentary caucus which frustrated a solid and sound agreement amongst progressive parties to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. In response to Fees Must Fall movement, President Jacob Zuma introduced fee-free education at higher education level. This was frustrated, however, and reversed by the administration that took over after his removal from office. We can throw statistical data on all areas of human development and progress, and we will all come to the same conclusion that the vision held by President Zuma far exceeded the narrow political obsession and persecution which the establishment subjected him to. Because he foresaw and politically knew and understood that South Africa's development and growth path cannot and should not depend on the imperialist and neo-colonial West, President Zuma built far-reaching and sustainable partnerships with countries that have no colonial and neo-colonial aspirations over South Africa and the African continent. It was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted. Yes, it was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted into BRICS. That is Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa in 2010. And many other countries have since then applied for membership of BRICS. Madam Chair, BRICS amounts to 31% of the global gross domestic product, 41% of the global population, and a significant voice in regional and global political economic affairs. The recent bullying tactics of the United States of America are a clarion call that South Africa should deepen the economic relationships with BRICS plus countries started by President Zuma. We now have in progress BRICS family. We have now, under the BRICS family, we have the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the United UAE, Islamic Republic of Iran, we have Argentina, we have Egypt, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. who can be sustainable and dependable trading partners and not bullying off tankers of goods and services produced and made in South Africa. Those are dependable partners. While we expect President Desmond Trump, while we expect President Donald Trump to end the imperialist war of NATO in Russia and to dissociate from the neo-colonial and dishonest so-called green energy, from the so-called green energy transactions imposed on the developing world, we do not agree with him and his promotion of white supremacists who claim they are facing genocide in South Africa. While there is no genocide and there is no threat of genocide in South Africa, let's make that clear. There are, however, legitimate cries of historically and presently oppressed and excluded black majority who demand the return of the land and the wealth to the ownership and control of the people as a whole, and not the privileged few beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism. That is our demand. Under the leadership of President Zuma, South Africa has since made significant strides in engaging with BRICS partners in an effort to challenge the dominance of the Western countries. Notably, the BRICS bloc has shown interest in creating alternative financial mechanisms, including a potential BRICS currency and multilateral payment systems. Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, we have an obligation as South Africa to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity, and in doing so, we should appreciate that our sovereignty as a nation should necessarily include the protection and sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all African countries. As we stated in the matter of urgent debate yesterday, South Africa should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to the rebels, because these rebels are funded by foreign role players, including the foreign governments and businesses which use rebels as conduits and militia to loot our natural endowments and wealth. If we run away and surrender DRC to the rebels, they will gain confidence and cause destabilization in the whole of East Africa, and then proceed to Southern Africa like they have already started in Mozambique. We cannot and should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to these dogs. We cannot and should never surrender even 1 inch of Africa's land and wealth to these dogs. We have an elected government in the DRC, and those who seek political power should gain it through democratic means and with the support of the people, and not through the barrel of the gun. Honorable Chairperson, the year 2030 is 5 years from now. 5 years from now, and according to the National Development Plan, which claim is the GNU's strategic objective, by the year 2030, you should have achieved the following. 1, NDP Vision 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have 6% unemployment rate. And currently unemployment rate at an expanded definition to include discouraged work seekers. It is sitting at the moment at 40% of the population. These are people who have the ability to work but cannot find the jobs. 2, the National Democratic Vision of 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have no one living under the poverty line. And currently, more than 40% of South Africans are living under the poverty line. Thirdly, this is part of the vision of the GNU, that by 2030, the so-called Government of National Unity says that by 2030, South Africa should have reduced the highest levels of inequality, yet our country remains the most unequal society in the world. South Africa remains the most unequal society in the world. We now know that the objectives and goals of the National Democratic Vision 2030 will not be achieved because this so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all.
Honorable Hlophe, can you please take your seat? Honorable Mhauli. Mhlauli.
Thank you. This is Mhauli.
Thanks.
I rise, Madam Chair, on Rule 68, which speaks to relevance and repetition. The speaker on the floor is not debating SONA, which is completely irrelevant to what the topic of discussion today is. Thank you.
Honorable members, once again, I want to make this appeal. Can you please avoid drowning the speakers or attempting to make a dialogue when the speaker is on the floor? Can we please be orderly? Honorable Mohaule, your point of order is not sustainable. Can we allow Honorable Hlophe to continue?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We now know that the objectives and goals of the NTP Vision 2030 will not be achieved because the so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all. Honorable Chairperson, the South African Reserve Bank, through the Prudential Authority, is in the process of closing down Itala Bank, which is the only bank in South Africa started by and controlled by black people and has been at the center of serving our people. There are available solutions within the state, including through massive investment by the Public Investments Corporation to rescue and keep Itala Bank fully operational and give it a banking license in terms of the Act. But the DA-ANC alliance government is allowing Itala to be closed down in order to create space for the white-owned banks, in particular First National Bank. The Prudential Authority of the South African Reserve Bank continue to ignore the many bank violations of Capitec Bank, swept under the carpet the very fact that there is banking conglomeration in RMB, FNB, Discovery and Green Road banks which are owned by the same people, yet it rushes to close down Itala Bank. We want to assure the people of KwaZulu-Natal that when we take over the province of KwaZulu-Natal in particular, we will revive and strengthen Itala Bank and restore it to its former glory and full operation. Meaningful economic participation by our people is not part of the NDP 2030 vision of the so-called GNU. Any self-respecting human being knows that South Africa will not achieve even half of the objectives and goals set in the NDP of the GNU because this GNU is full of self-contradictions and conflicts which will disrupt a clear development path to prosperity. The so-called GNU is nothing but a grand coalition of former liberators and historical but present oppressors. and the former liberators have joined the oppressors in the continued oppression of our people. While they travel in luxurious cars, the majority of the population's reality is one of catastrophic public transport that is akin to walking barefooted. This contradiction is starker in the light of the following. There is a widening fiscal gap in this country between the rich and the poor. It is now projected to exceed 5% of the GDP. B, there is a growing national debt expected to surpass 80% of the GDP by year 2026, a cause for concern. There is rising inflation and increased cost of living, forcing millions into deeper poverty as poor households are faced with disproportionate 11.3 increase in their food basket, pushing them deeper into poverty. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world, with a Gini coefficient of 0.63. The inequality gap between the rich and the poor is growing wider every day. In 2024 alone, over 139,000 more people fell into the extreme poverty. Yet, despite previous commitments, the government has failed to introduce a basic income grant. The Social Relief of Distress, SRD grant, which provides critical relief to 8 million South Africans, remains uncertain and is likely to be ended in March this year. Informal settlements continue to grow, while state-funded housing projects still due to budget constraints that exist only on paper. Meanwhile, the rail system, a potential lifeline for working-class South Africans, remains broken, forcing reliance on expensive and unsafe alternatives. Government's failure to spend allocated funds is not just mismanagement. It is an active betrayal of our people. Over 90% of the municipalities are financially unsustainable and unable to meet their service delivery obligations. Water shortages and sewer spills have become a daily reality in many communities. Load shedding, now called load reduction, continues to cripple small businesses and the households of the poor, making economic recovery impossible. We as Umkhonto weSizwe are fully aware that instead of giving land to our people, the current government is cooperating with the white capitalist establishment to take away the land and natural resources of our people. Our Commander General, President Zuma, has had several engagements with Amakhosi from Richards Bay areas in Umhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of the KZN province. We are fully aware that the authorities, including the highest office in South Africa and the highest office in South African Police Service, have been threatening and intimidating Amakhosi from the area, intimidating them to accept a deal which will pillage and loot the natural resources and endowments of our people in the area. We take this opportunity to send a strong warning to the Richards Bay minerals owned by BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto that we as Umkhonto weSizwe, representing the majority of the people in Umhlathuze municipality, majority in King Cetshwayo district, and certainly a decisive majority of the people of KwaZulu-Natal province, we will not allow Rio Tinto and BHP built in to pilot and loot our natural resources. We will not allow that. In the next few weeks, we as members of Umkhonto weSizwe and the KZN members of the provincial legislature will be visiting uMhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of KwaZulu-Natal province to solidify our program and campaign against Rio Tinto and BHP built-in. We will do that. We as Umkhonto weSizwe, we stand here on behalf of the people of South Africa, traditional and religious leaders, the unemployed millions of our people, the underpaid and exploited workers, the black professionals who suffer racist treatment in the workplace, the farm workers, and all the people who need a better future for our country, and state that Umkhonto weSizwe is the real alternative to current so-called government of national unity, which is nothing but an alliance between the DA and the African National Congress. The so-called government of national unity has exposed...
Honourable Member, your time is up. Please take your seat.